It's the one where you got the government to pay back $20,000.
Oh.
Which I think is a great story.
Yes. So like I said, when there's a lady that I know, she's a friend of a friend, and she said, I love my in-laws. They weren't born in Canada. Sometimes language can be a barrier, but I feel like there's something off with their plan and their finances. Can I bring them in, and can you give me a second opinion? So they get the standard, bring me your tax return, bring me your investment statements. And so they brought in their tax return, and we live in Windsor, Ontario, which is the automotive capital of Canada. And this gentleman had retired from Chrysler, and a lot of times Chrysler will offer a buyout as an incentive for somebody to retire. And so what happened was this gentleman had taken a $50,000 buyout. However, the person that prepared the income taxes neglected to put the RSP contribution slip on his return. So on his last T4, yes. So on his last T4, his income was higher because Chrysler gave him the money as an eligible retiring allowance. There's eligible and non-eligible retiring allowances. So he had a retiring allowance. However, the tax preparer missed putting the RSP contribution, which is, to me, mind-boggling. To me, it's pretty... I don't understand Basic how it was missed. Anyway, so this man ended up thinking he owed $20,000 to the government, refinanced his house to get some money out because he didn't have he had registered funds, but he didn't have that $20,000 available to pay the tax.
Let me just pull out my credit card. Here's the $20,000.
Yeah. So it took about 2 months to get this fixed up. It took me a little bit to figure out, well, it didn't actually. It took me a few minutes to figure out there, and I went, holy cow, how do I tell these people that their family friend that did their taxes buggered it up really bad?
Wow.
And then they paid all the fees, and so it was a little delicate situation. Long story short, that was probably 2 or 3 years ago now. Long story short, I do their taxes. They were just in actually 2 weeks ago. Oh my God, these people hug me. They bring me candies. They bring me things that will rot my kids' teeth. I don't even bring them. They're like so appreciative that I was able to fix it. So they're always bringing me little treats and things for my son.
In a nutshell, the government ended up having to pay back that $20,000 to these people.
Yes.
And that's what makes it an awesome story. How many stories do you ever hear where the ending is the government paid you money?
Yes.
That never happens.
Right. But it should have happened in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
But it was an error of but we're all human, and
people
professionals make mistakes.
Yes.
Thankfully, they came to the right professional to fix it, and my goodness, these people were absolutely ecstatic. And I have clients. I have clients for life now because I was able to fix it for them.
Well, $20,000 mistake is a pretty big mistake.
That is a very big mistake. It's just I just think before, because they're the nicest people, and I think, my goodness, they would have had to refinance their house, go to a lawyer, pay all these extra fees and things. Like, what is that punch? But anyway, that was one I fixed. What's the other one?
The other one is the two kids while they were in their mid-20s or 30s whose mom died, and you had to tell them. This is relevant because so many people can find themselves in this situation, which could be completely avoided.
Yes. I tell this story a lot. I have clients of mine, they have a friend, and they were telling her, you got to see a Lynn. Anyway, long story short, she never did come to see me. But this lady passed away. She had some health issues going on, but she passed away somewhat unexpectedly. And here she had her 2 grown children in their early 30s. And of course, they went to, mom's best friend. What do we do? And they said, okay, you're going to see a Lynn. Helped them do her final tax return. The unfortunate part, obviously, is that the woman died, but the really unfortunate part about the situation was that she had worked for the city of Windsor, and she had an OMERS pension, and she died in October. And I say this a lot, and it's horrible to say, but the later in the year somebody dies, the worse it is. So she had OMERS income. It was, I think, just under $50,000 or so that she had made. This happened a few years ago, but this is one of those ones where it just makes me sick when I think about the story and how it all kind of went for this family. And then the mom had taken Canada Pension, so we added on Canada Pension. The problem is she had a couple $100,000 in RSPs, and she was divorced, and her kids were grown up, so the money couldn't be rolled over. So when we did mom's final tax return, we had OMERS, Canada Pension, and then we had to tack over $200,000 of RSP income onto her final tax return. And I had to tell these poor kids that were trying to clean up mom's house and get it ready to sell that they also had to cut a check to the CRA for $100,000 to pay her tax bill.
So on top of dealing with the grief of losing their mother and then taking care of all of her household stuff, you're now delivering the news that, hey, you owe the CRA over $100K.
And I'm not a kick someone while they're down person, but I thought, my goodness, if this woman would have come to see me 4 years before, when she started taking her CPP and getting her OMERS payment, I would have had her start taking a little bit out of her RSP and shifting it to her tax-free savings, because thankfully mom had a will and the kids signed a form for me to be her authorized tax preparer when she passed away. Her TFSA was not maxed out.
Oh, wow.
So, and she had been retired for 4 years. So there was a 4-year window where the person that was managing her funds at a bank should have said, and I'm not saying she would have taken out a lot, but maybe it was $5,000 or $10,000 a year. Take out, pay the tax man, and shift it to a TFSA, back to the decumulation of assets.
So important, decumulation of assets.
You can imagine how upsetting it was, because this woman's best friend has been a client of mine for years. So, she was pretty upset about losing her friend. Here you have these, young adults that lost their mom.
Yes.
And man, so there were some tears that day. That's why that one really, gets me, because I thought, oh my God, if this, and I didn't say it to them, but I'm thinking in my head, my goodness, if your mom would have just come to see me when, she was referred to me, and then, she didn't, life happens. And a lot of that, I mean, a million different things could have happened, but at least if we could have gotten $5,000 or $10,000 a year out, had her pay the tax on it while she was living, shifted to a TFSA, then it wouldn't have been as big a tax burden on the family.
The importance of proper retirement planning.
Absolutely.
And having everything in order. Thankfully, she had a will.
Yes.
I'm sure you have stories of people.
That's a whole other podcast. That's a whole other podcast we'll do when people don't have wills and the mess.
Yeah, and like a proper estate planning, because I'm sure it can get pretty ugly between family members.
I could talk for hours on that one. Yep. There's another topic for us.
So, all right. So in looking and going through all of these kind of retirement horror stories, what would you say would be the top 3 things that people need to prep to kind of avoid situations like this? From what I'm hearing from you and listening to, I think maxing out your TSFA would probably be amongst the number one thing.
Yeah, absolutely that. If you have a group plan, reviewing it regularly, not just, hey, I got my statement in, you get one, for the end of June and the end of December, checking in on it periodically and making sure that you have the proper beneficiaries designated, and then based on what's going on in the markets, that you're still in the proper funds. And if you have a group plan, making sure that you actually have your funds going into it, right? So we told a couple of stories where people weren't actually paying into a plan when they were eligible for it. And the other thing actually is, I've known a few people. I mean, the first story we told was a lady that didn't pay into a pension plan for 21 years, but I've had a few clients come in, but they've worked at a company for a year or two and they still haven't put money into a plan. So sometimes they'll give you these big books and they look daunting. Ask your HR professional at your place of employment, or ask a financial advisor. Yes, they're not getting paid to help manage those funds, but they should be concerned about your overall financial health. So don't leave that money on the table.
That's the key.
Yeah.
They should be concerned about your overall financial health.
Yes.
And sometimes that's not the case. It's about bottom line, making money.
Yeah.
So I think it's, I don't know, like basically to recap would be like max out TSFA, make sure your group plan, and what would the third thing be, do you think?
Check for those interest income slips. So if you get a big tax slip from one of your financial institutions, know why you're getting the slip. Just better educate yourself.
Right.
Is there something that you could be doing? Could you be shifting money into a different investment vehicle to cut down on that tax bill? Because it's something that's, if you put money in there, it's probably going to be happening to you every single year.
Right.
So over time, that can really add up to a lot of extra tax dollars you could be unnecessarily paying.
And always look into decumulations of assets when you're nearing retirement. I think that's so incredibly important. Something, again, that I never learned.
And have a solid plan.
Yes, have a solid plan in place for it. So hopefully you got something out of this. Maybe you have a horror story that you'd like to share, or know somebody, and The reason why we're sharing these stories is an attempt to educate people to avoid these situations moving forward. And I mean, if you're like 5 to 10 years away from retirement, like listen to these tips, listen to these advice, and make sure that you don't find yourself in a situation where this can happen to you. So I'm Glenn Picaro. This is Elaine Godfrey, the financial architect for Canadians. And if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. We will do our best to try to address anything that you have, any questions, comments, or concerns. I hope this brought a lot of information and a lot of good tips to help you prepare for retirement. And any last thoughts as we say goodbye?
What's the one thing we say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Exactly.
So take a few minutes and...
Very good.